Fallout is strange. From its earliest conceptions to its most modern, we see theories, secrets, and Easter eggs arrive in all forms. From simple theories like China shot first in the Great War, all the way to every vault in Fallout being sentient. So we took as many of these Iceberg theories and secrets as we could find and decided to look into the most interesting in Fallout 4. But don't worry, we're also planning Fallout 3, New Vegas, and even 76 Icebergs. So consider subbing so you don't miss out on those. A theory iceberg represents a concept by showing common or well-known ideas at the top or the tip, and increasingly deeper, more obscure or complex theories beneath the surface. The deeper you go, the more hidden or speculative the theories become. We'll explain what each theory means and where it comes from, and see if we can't find an answer. Enjoy.
At the tip of this iceberg, most things are pretty well known, but I'm sure there's something here that might surprise you. If not, then I wouldn't be surprised. This game has been around for almost 10 years at this point.
Sign up now and prepare for the future.
Technically, the Vault-Tec phone number goes back to Fallout 3, where the number first made its debut years ago in the E3 2008 trailer. Back then, you could call it and the number worked, but even after the release of Fallout 4, Bethesda kept this Easter egg rolling. You can find the number during the opening sequence of Fallout 4, right after you complete your character. You can find a Vault-Tec poster in your house. At the time of release, if you called 188-4-Vault-Tec, which yes, the number is longer than most phone numbers, this is what you would have heard.
Thank you for calling Vault, your first choice in post-nuclear survival. We're sorry, but due to unexpectedly high call volume, all representatives are currently busy. Please stay on the line, and someone will be with you as soon as possible. There are 181 callers in front of you. Estimated wait time 16,643 hours. Thank you for calling Vault. Have a wonderful day.
Like most of the theories on this list that comes from the fans of the games, this theory specifically didn't start in Fallout 4 per se. It started when the first 3D Fallout games started to arrive. I'm sure you've seen the teddy bears scattered across the wasteland in funny positions, like reading a newspaper on a toilet or things of that nature. Well, people started noticing that some bears were placed in situations that reminded them of children, playing with toys or building blocks, things of that nature. And then they started connecting the dots. We know that in past Fallout games or even Elder Scrolls games before Skyrim that Bethesda never added children to their games. Mostly this was done out of fear of violence from the players and how the ratings boards might respond to that. This eventually faded away as we see multiple children in Skyrim and Fallout 4. Why this connects to the teddy bears is that people started assuming that Bethesda developers were placing them in the games to represent children. Well, dead children, literally. I tried to find where this had originally originated, and the furthest back I could find is this post on GameFAQs 9 years ago. It says, quote, "Something I've been musing about for a while now. You see skeletons everywhere, but all adults. Where are the skeletons of children? Well, think about the various sizes of teddy bears you find all over the place. My theory is that Bethesda thought including children's skeletons might make people uncomfortable, so they represent them with bears instead, like the distress signal leading to the train car, a woman's body next to a teddy bear, her son Tommy. I like to think that little Tommy got away, grew up, became a ghoul, and took over the combat zone. But more than likely, he, like his mother, became feral Chow. So every time now you find a bear, think of what it really represents. It's a cool theory for sure, but there are definitely a few holes. For one, there are in fact children's skeletons in Fallout 4 and in New Vegas and Fallout 3. They are hard to find, but they do exist. Most people assume they are still adults because the models of the skeletons are just shrunk down. Another hole is that there are a lot of teddy bears placed in positions that would not be appropriate for children. Some argue that there are just teddy bears and then there are the children teddy bears. Not all are the same. Lastly, we have an interview with the devs from a video made by Steve Lee here on YouTube. During this, the devs mentioned that the skeletons, gnomes, and of course teddy bears were used as a way of keeping themselves entertained during work. After they had done dungeon after dungeon, it started to feel a bit repetitive. That's not to say that they didn't also include a backstory while doing so. This is the teddy bear theory.
This is the experimental plant that is found in Fallout 4. You might have seen it, you might not have. It's found on the Brotherhood airship clear at the back of the ship or the front, I'm not too sure. The experiment started when a Brotherhood field scribe found a strange root near the mouth of a river. It had some unusual chemical properties, so the scribe grafted it onto a tougher plant to test and crossbreed it. The result was a leafy plant with thick roots. After confirming it was safe, they brewed it into an oddly good tea. Not long after, some samples of the plant even started glowing. The scribe believed that the leaves had healing powers, because drinking the tea made them feel great. However, the other scribes disagreed, warning that the plant was addictive and suggesting that they stop brewing it altogether. These claims all come from the botany terminal on the Pridwin, in case you were curious. Now, besides the obvious look of the plant, I'm guessing you know where we're going with this, especially if you're a fan of the Elder Scrolls games. And you'd be correct. The theory or claim is that this plant is in fact Nirnroot, which is found in the Elder Scrolls games. Besides its looks, it grows near water and it even glows. It's pretty much Nirnroot, all but in name. Now, of course, this could just be an Easter egg, but the bigger theory is that somehow Fallout and the Elder Scrolls worlds are one and the same. Some people suggest that ES is the future of Fallout's world. Some say they're two separate planets in the same universe, including Starfield. There's some more evidence based on this specific theory, but we won't get into all of that. I didn't really want to include this one because I truly believe at this point everyone and their dog knows that this ghoul is found at the Hotel Rexford, and it's the same Vault-Tec rep that comes to your door at the beginning of the game. I think on this channel alone we've literally covered this guy twice. Anyways, there you have it. He does give some cool backstory on what happened to him, but with some very minor details. So this used to be a pretty cool glitch that you could do in Fallout 4. It worked all the way up until recently in 2024, when Bethesda decided to patch it out. Some say it still works in the right conditions though, so you guys will have to let us know if you can still get it to work on a fully updated version of the game. Basically, what the glitch used to be is that you would take Dogmeat back to Vault 101 after finding him at the Red Rocket. You'd then go to the room with the unique weapon called the Cryolator. Now normally to get this weapon, you need the highest lockpicking skills. But with Dogmeat, you can actually ask him to fetch the weapon and he'll collect it from the glass case and give it to you, giving you one of the most powerful weapons in the game in the first 20 minutes, which was pretty awesome. Vault Boy has always been the cheerful, cartoonish face of the Fallout franchise. From instruction manuals to perk cards and loading screens, his smile and iconic thumbs up are instantly recognizable. But fans have long wondered, what does the thumbs up really even mean? At first glance, you would think it's just a carefree gesture from a character who's always unnervingly optimistic. But for years, a fan theory has circulated that the Vault Boy thumbs up is actually rooted in nuclear safety protocol. Take a closer look, and you'll notice that the Vault Boy is squinting with one eye closed and staring down his thumb with the other. According to the theory, this poses a radiation survival technique. If you hold your thumb up and a mushroom cloud from a nuclear blast is larger than your thumb, you're too close. If the cloud is hidden behind your thumb, you're supposedly outside the deadly blast radius. This method, known as the rule of thumb, isn't actually used for nuclear safety. While it does exist in some hazmat and emergency responder training, it's typically applied to small-scale explosions, not atomic bombs. Fallout creator Brian Fargo himself once addressed the idea on Twitter by saying, "The Vault Boy simply just has a positive attitude." Still, the theory got a major boost recently when the Amazon Fallout TV series dropped its first episode. So is the Vault Boy shielding himself from radiation, or is he just being his usual cheerful self in a world gone to hell? Maybe it's both.
This one is a classic, and I'm surprised so many icebergs had it on their lists. It seems like a pretty common thing to run into these days. Once you hit level 20 in Fallout 4, there's a random event you might experience while exploring the Commonwealth. You'll suddenly hear a strange sound overhead. Look up quickly and you'll see a UFO zooming past before crashing somewhere off in the distance. It leaves a clear trail of smoke behind, making it easy to spot. No matter what, it always crashes in the exact same spot, and you can even hear the explosion from pretty far away. Another way to get this to activate is by turning on Relay Tower 1DL109. When you do, you'll pick up a signal called the Garbled Radio Beacon. If you tune your Pip-Boy radio to this frequency and follow it east, the signal will become clearer until you finally find the crashed UFO. The crash site itself is pretty massive. You'll see a half-buried alien ship stuck in the side of a hill, surrounded by a path of destruction with flattened ground, shattered trees, and flames everywhere. Some trees nearby are permanently burning, which makes it easier to notice from a distance. You can't actually go inside the ship or loot anything directly from the wreck, but if you look closely, you'll notice a trail of glowing green alien blood nearby. Follow this trail northward down into a small ravine and it'll lead you straight into a hidden, unmarked cave. Inside, you'll come face to face with an injured alien who's armed with an alien blaster pistol and some ammo. If you use VATS, you'll notice the alien's right leg is already crippled. This alien isn't friendly and will attack as soon as it spots you. Near the alien, there's also a human skeleton and a ham radio, which turns out to be the source of the garbled radio beacon. Turning the radio off will stop the signal completely. Aliens are a common occurrence in the Fallout games, especially with Fallout 3 and Fallout 76, as they both had major add-ons dealing with the Zedans. We have a video on our channel breaking down all the lore surrounding them, so if you're curious, you could also check that out. The Sanctuary basement or the root cellar is a hidden little basement that you can find in Sanctuary. It's found behind a house 2 houses east from the sole survivor's home. A lot of people tend to miss this place, and it kind of became a little go-to fact when people would talk to each other about Fallout 4. It reminds me of times back in the day when secrets and hidden things weren't super prominent on the internet and your friend would tell you about it at school. It was almost always a lie, but sometimes there actually was some cool secret. Anyways, this is similar to that. Once you go in, you'll find a mattress, a safe, and a bunch of pre-war food scattered across the floor and shelves. Turns out this place was built by a guy named Jahani before the bombs dropped. There are 3 valuable gold bars hidden around the room, one on the ground, one underneath a shelf, and one sitting right on top of the safe. Plus, there's a decent stash of military-grade ammo inside. The reason people like this place a lot is because you can safely use the cellar for storage since the containers don't reset or respawn items. Also, your settlers in Sanctuary can't reach this place, so anything you stash here will stay safe. The game files name this location Sanctuary Basement Jahani, confirming Jahani built and lived here. Interestingly enough, the cellar isn't there if you look during the pre-war intro, which means either Jahani only built the shelter right before the bombs fell, or the devs forgot to include it in the intro.
We're proceeding further down into the Iceberg into level 1. On this level, things start to get a little more obscure, but nothing too crazy. If you're an avid fan, you probably know most of this stuff already. Okay, at the surface level of this one, most of you probably know about your neighbors from Sanctuary before the bombs fell can actually be found after the bombs fall. As ghouls. That's right, good old Mr. Donahue, Mrs. Donahue, Mr. Sumner, Mrs. Sumner, Mr. Parker, Mrs. Parker, and Miss Rosa, all turn into rabid monsters and are placed into the game as random encounters. That in itself is cool, but fans theorize that this was a bit too odd. There's a few big holes in the idea. First, what's the chance your entire neighborhood survived radiation and then stayed together for over 200 years, and then conveniently showed up in Boston? Pretty slim. Second, even if they did, how would you recognize them? After 2 centuries, their faces and clothes would be completely unrecognizable. And also, this event happens more than once in multiple locations, which makes the whole scenario even more unlikely. So what's really going on? Well, think about what the sole survivor has been through. They've lost everything, their spouse, their child, their home, all in what feels like one terrible day. Wandering Boston isn't just about exploring ruins, it's navigating the decaying remains of their old life. Every ghoul they encounter might have been someone they knew or interacted with, like the cashier at their favorite store, or a stranger who sat next to them on the subway. When the sole survivor fights ferals, they're not just battling zombies. They're facing the traumatic echoes of their past life. The sole survivor might just be dealing with insane PTSD and survivor's guilt, which would be nice to see in some of these games. I get that Fallout is a little goofy and wacky, but the dark side could be explored a bit more. The sole survivor should be racked with despair and depression, and we should see that. Anyways, I'm done with my little tangent. Some people believe that this isn't just a theory, but a literal fact. But I couldn't find any evidence suggesting that it is real, so for now, it's just a theory. A Fallout theory. There is a painting of Napoleon Bonaparte found in Fallout 4, except that's not Napoleon. It's of course God Howard himself. If you zoom in close, you'll notice a little Easter egg in the painting, Todd Howard's face, and that's pretty much it. But did you know that this painting also made it into the Fallout TV show? You can see it in the background right here. I thought that was a cool little detail that they added. This one is interesting because it began as a theory and then it started to evolve into that theory actually being true. But then it eventually led to an unfortunate ending. It all started when this Redditor Lavonicus decided to explore all of the oceans and water bits in Fallout 4. I'll break down what he thought. Basically, he believes that the mysterious Ghoul Whale, which is mentioned by NPCs, isn't just a myth or a reference to the submarine or dolphins we see on shore, but an actual hidden creature in the game. And yes, you can find NPCs mentioning a Ghoul Whale called Peg in the game.
So one day, my grandpappy was egging. It was a foul day, fog so thick you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. He was stumbling along and then he heard a tremendous clamoring from the ocean. Like nothing he'd ever heard before or since. He stood still for a long time. The fog cleared for a brief moment, and that's when he saw the outline of the great behemoth. Massive. Bigger than anything you or I will ever see. Old Peg. A giant blue ghoul whale.
Anyways, his main reasoning comes from the unusual clues scattered throughout the Commonwealth, particularly the large number of buoys, some of which even have dead fish pointing towards each other, leading to a buoy placed just beyond the game's boundaries. He also noticed that the buoys have bells that could be rung by shooting them, possibly activating some hidden event, similar to something like zombies from Call of Duty. He connected this discovery to Fallout 3's DLC Point Lookout, where similar buoys pointed to secret loot. Another clue he highlighted is how the game's currents strangely pull the player toward intersecting locations, hinting that something is hidden beneath the water or out of bounds. He suspected that these buoys and bells were intended to activate or summon the Ghoul Whale, creating one of Fallout 4's biggest Easter eggs. He then went on to ask for modders' help and so on and so forth. Basically, his theory actually held a lot of weight and he wasn't entirely wrong. Turns out that old Peg, who was mentioned by the guards, is exactly that. A mentioned only being and cut content. Also, the guards could be referencing the Yank submarine, but it's never made clear. The whale never made it into the game, and I guess the devs forgot to cut some dialogue about the creature. Or maybe it was never intended to be a thing in the first place, and they thought that the rumor would be a cool Easter egg or something. There are even more rumors that Bethesda was planning an underwater DLC with a harpoon gun, and that's where we were going to see old Peg, but that never happened. Cool story anyways.
In the hills northeast of Relay Tower 0BB915 lies a hidden gem known as the Rocket Shed. It's a small unmarked shack that doesn't appear on your map. From the outside, it looks like just another abandoned building perched on a cliffside. But step inside and you'll discover that someone, presumably a very bored, creative nomad, turned the shed into a makeshift rocket artillery station. Inside, you'll find propane canisters carefully balanced on improvised launch ramps, all pointed toward the open valley below. And yes, you can fire them. One by one, these canisters launch into the sky like post-apocalyptic fireworks, bursting in midair in a glorious display of chaos and combustion. Sadly, they're not weaponized, so you won't be taking out deathclaws with this thing. The only downside is the number of canisters is limited, so enjoy the show while it lasts. This tends to be one a lot of people miss. If you're in Sanctuary, just head right across the river until you find this thing. This is a water filtration system. But not just any water filtration system. You need to get the thing running again, so head down to the river and find the circuit breaker and flip it. Then a filtration unit will open up and contains a cool little cap stash found inside. It's a pretty unique thing found in Fallout 4. I don't know who or why someone spent so much time creating it, but it really is awesome. The Nostromo Flux sensor is one of those Easter eggs that's always fun to mention when talking about Fallout 4. The Flux sensor is a specialized piece of technical hardware that resembles the sensor module but features a unique back design. It's primarily associated with the Brotherhood of Steel's Quartermastery quest, where Scribe Halen tasks the player with retrieving specific items from various locations. Upon successful retrieval, these items, like the haptic drive or the reflex capacitor, can be returned to her in exchange for bottle caps. Interestingly, the Flux sensor bears an inscription on its back stating the following. This is a reference to the movie Alien, specifically the US CSS Nostromo's model CM88B and registration number. Coincidence or intentional? It's cool to see Fallout also pay more respects to the Alien franchise in 76 as well, but we'll save that for another video.
The developer room is one of the game's better kept and lesser utilized secrets. An off-the-grid location packed with every item, weapon, and piece of gear in the entire game. It's not accessible through normal gameplay, but PC players can reach it with a simple console command. You can see that right here. Hit enter and you'll be instantly teleported to a mysterious testing area that looks like a rundown town square. Inside this place, you'll find chests and containers neatly organized with every item in the game. There's consumables, scraps, holotapes, ammo, crafting materials, and more. Every weapon and armor set, including unique, legendary, and even quest-specific gear that would otherwise take hours or entire playthroughs to collect, and rows of power armor stations. It's essentially a developer testing sandbox, created to streamline item testing during development. But now it's a treasure trove for us PC players. When you're ready to leave, just bring up the console again and type this. This will send you right back to the Commonwealth and specifically to Sanctuary Hills. Todd Howard's infamous terminal secret. If you're not familiar, shortly after Fallout 4 launched, Todd Howard hinted in an interview that there was a huge secret hidden in a terminal that nobody had found yet. This kicked off a huge treasure hunt, with players diving deep into every terminal entry, especially once the creation kit came out and it made it easier to search. But the years passed and nothing solid came up. Even Pete Hines from Bethesda later admitted nobody had discovered it yet, but he also downplayed the terminal's importance. Then, Juicehead posted an interesting video claiming he'd finally solved it. Juicehead's theory revolves around a terminal in the Institute's synth production area. The entry describes Gen 3 synths having a built-in ability similar to VATS, showing percentages to hit body parts and even slowing down their perception of time. Strangely, before you even get your Pip-Boy in Vault 111, you can actually use VATS once you pick up the 10mm pistol. This small detail suggests that the possibility that your character, the sole survivor, could actually be a synth. There is some pushback to this idea, like the Brotherhood of Steel having a list of synths that doesn't include you. But considering Sean, her father, runs the Institute, it makes sense he might have hidden your true identity. Juice's theory takes it a step further. He suggests that the original sole survivor died in cryosleep when the vault failed, and Sean, desperate to save his parent, created a synth clone with implanted memories. Fallout 4 might even tease this possibility in Far Harbor, where Dima suggests that your memories might not be fully genuine, hinting you might unknowingly be a synth yourself. So Juicehead's conclusion is basically that the big terminal secret might be confirming the sole survivor is a secret synth, or at least proving that Gen 3 synths have a hidden connection to VATS. Of course, it could just be a glitch or something Bethesda never patched, and some players argue that there still might be other secrets related to the word terminal, like the airport terminal at Boston Airport or even terminal illnesses of certain characters. There's even a fan theory that Sean traveled to the Capital Wasteland and became James, the father of Fallout 3's Lone Wanderer, but that's a whole other rabbit hole. Juicehead's 2020 video explains patch 1.5 was released in April and May of 2016, a few months after Todd's secret terminal interview. The patch enabled access to a terminal entry located in the Institute, the one we spoke about earlier. The entry was always there from launch, but you just couldn't click on it to read it. I think Juicehead has a good theory, but it's still not perfect. And neither Todd nor anybody else has ever confirmed if this has even been solved yet. Some people think that maybe the content that Todd was talking about got cut in the dev process and he never knew. Or that maybe he said it just to boost interest in the game again. I also wanted to bring this up after doing some thorough, and I mean thorough, research. Someone had actually theorized all of this in 2016. A Steam user by the name of Douglas Grave, and I think he deserves some credit. Here's a conversation that took place on the Fallout 4 Steam discussions of Douglas bringing up the sole survivor synth theory using the VATS terminal entry on December 20th, 2016. Pretty interesting stuff, and I'm surprised this terminal entry didn't catch on till way later. But Douglas Grave was locked in and he deserves some flowers. This guy's a madman when it comes to Fallout 4 with thousands of posts. It's awesome.
The Plumbers Secret is an unmarked location in the game that appears to be a pre-war plumbing supply store situated southeast of mass gravel and sand in Cambridge. It has 4 entrances and is largely abandoned save for 2 rad roaches in the storeroom and a few armed bottle cap mines scattered around. The real highlight of this location, the so-called Plumbers Secret, is hidden above. If you follow the unusual trail of plungers stuck to the walls and ceiling, you'll spot several items precariously perched out of reach. Fortunately, these items can be knocked down by shooting the boards they rest on, causing them to fall to the floor. Found at the end of the plunger trail on the ceiling, alongside a stash of caps, is a short syringer rifle. Then of course the Vault Tech lunchbox is behind the front counter near the cash register. And if you're indeed a plumber, maybe you'll want to stash all 23 plungers, which of course are affixed in absurd places throughout the store, forming a bizarre climb the walls path that guides your eyes to the ceiling. This isn't the first time Bethesda added plungers to the lore, since a similar plunger path can be found in Fallout 3 at another unmarked shelter, where plungers are arranged along walls and ceilings. However, in that case, the trail leads nowhere. There's no hidden stash waiting at the end. Are you familiar with the Prost bar tucked away in the Back Bay neighborhood of Boston? Or maybe familiar with it being in Beacon Hill based on in-game cell data? Well, even though the bar's exit calls it Back Bay, this spot is located just southwest of the Massachusetts State House and directly west of the Boston Common Gazebo. This small, easily overlooked building hides a secret. The interior consists of a main bar area with two smaller side rooms, an office and a pool table room connected to a bathroom, but it's the atmosphere and references that make this place memorable and a secret in plain sight. Fans of classic television will quickly recognize what this location is truly meant to be. A loving tribute to Cheers, the sitcom set in a Boston bar that aired from 1982 to 1993. The layout of Prost Bar is nearly identical to the one seen on the show, and the hints of the characters on the big screen are scattered throughout. Behind the bar, two skeletons lie side by side holding hands, which is a clear reference to Sam Malone and Diane Chambers, whose turbulent relationship was central to the series. In the northwest corner, a skeleton dressed in a tattered formal shirt and pants represent Fraser Crane, the refined psychiatrist who later starred in his own spin-off. In the southwest corner, another pair of skeletons sits in familiar fashion. One wears a postman's outfit, undoubtedly Cliff, and next to him is his bar buddy representing the ever-present Norm Peterson. The bar is also adorned with vintage baseball posters, which, if you recall Sam Malone's character, he was a former relief pitcher for the Boston Red Sox. And of course, the name Prost isn't just a random label, it's the German word for cheers. Bethesda really went all in on this one.
The FMS Northern Star is this ship right here. You guys have probably cleared this thing out 1,000 times, and it seems to be one of the bigger highlight locations in Fallout 4. What's cool about this ship is that it's actually Norwegian, and a lot of people don't know that until they're told or they know the language. When you arrive at the ship, the crew won't actually fire on you, unless you step into the ship, but they do shout things at you in a different language.
Du vill dö för detta. Du vill angre på oss.
Well, when you translate these words from Norwegian to English, they say things like go away and leave us alone. And when you kill them, the others will shout a phrase meaning you killed him.
Oh, nej!
While dying, they might even say, which means I'm coming home, which must be a reference to going back to Norway. Honestly, it seems sad to mess with these guys knowing all of this. This one is quick, but basically when you chug a few beers or some alcohol, your character will actually start to talk to people in a drunk voice, and it's pretty hilarious.
Hello. You.
Hello.
Thank.
Yep.
Not interested.
Glad.
Concur. You tried to punch out the bartender.
I thought it would.
Sing it.
And I'm supposed to just pretend.
Sing it, brother. Minutemen. Jesus.
What's the matter, handsome? Don't tell me.
Ugh. A lounge singer.
Yeah. On.
Nice accent, blimey. Nice costume,
So long as you
freak.
remember.
Not now.
Disappoint?
Nice guns.
Right, see you again. You manage.
Giant green idiot.
Carhenge is an unmarked location featuring a circle of rusted cars arranged to resemble the iconic Stonehenge monument, except we can assume aliens didn't create this site. Or did they? But likely it was super mutants who had nothing better to do. Or maybe the Zaydens are the true artists. We may never know. This monument is found south of Walden Pond if you're interested in exploring the area. But keep your eyes peeled since a super mutant behemoth often appears nearby and he doesn't take kindly to strangers. Also, there is a Carhenge found in Fallout 76, so there does appear to be an epidemic of these strangely situated cars popping up all over the wasteland. I couldn't find any prominent theories about why this is occurring or who's doing this. There's basically no evidence. Most just believe it was either mutants or aliens, which we stated earlier. Why they would do this is anyone's guess. In the game, if you look at your Pip-Boy, you'll notice that you can see the time and the date. This is important for what we're trying to achieve here. If you don't have console commands, then you're going to have to wait or sleep out your time until October 31st or December 25th. When you do, head to Diamond City and you'll find a nice little surprise. On October 31st, Diamond City will be decorated with Halloween decorations, as they apparently still celebrate Halloween. And then on December 25th, you guessed it, it's Christmas time with Christmas decorations. I'm actually still surprised by how many people still don't know about this, but I also don't blame them. Going to Diamond City on these exact dates while you're playing is probably a very slim chance.
This level is where theories and secrets start to get a little more speculative. Still compelling, of course, with some substantial evidence, and others are just mostly for fun. But these should surprise a lot of you guys. You know how the old saying goes, birds aren't real. They're governmental flying cameras keeping watch over us all. I'm not here to debunk that claim, nor am I here to call it a truth. But what is very real is the fact that there are synths in the Commonwealth, and these synths expand beyond simply synthetic humans. The birds in Fallout, at least some of them, are actual spying cameras for none other than the Institute themselves. You can find a number of different TV displays showing random locations throughout the Commonwealth, each sharing one thing in common. The cameras are birds. The SRB, or Synth Retention Bureau, is the organization tasked with keeping eyes on and capturing escaped synths. So it makes sense why they're so keen on playing Big Brother in the Wasteland with their watcher crows. If you were to go slay a cow today, would you expect any type of mechanical components to fall out of it? Even if the cow had grown an extra head through severe radiation devastation, I still wouldn't expect a cow to dispose of mechanical components upon its death. Yet some settlement Brahmin drop a synth component upon death. Brahmin are known for their 2 heads, 8 stomachs, and rumors have it that the bulls themselves have 4 testicles. But dropping a synth component upon death seems too far-fetched to be an oversight, which is why some Brahmin are allegedly synths. It's crazy to think about, but maybe the Institute needed another set of eyes on escaped synths aside from their crows. Speaking about animals in the Wasteland, you've probably seen all of these cute cat paintings before. Have you ever wondered where they all came from and why they are all in such relatively decent condition, and the fact that you can put the paintings in your settlements as if you were purchasing them? That's because they are still being made to this day. Santiago Avita is a painter and robo-brain from Vault 118 in the Far Harbor DLC. And if you check out his art gallery, you will see none other than all of the paintings you can place in your settlements, even the cat ones. He doesn't really like to paint those, and he thinks he's better than that, but he does it all the same. The theory is that these are then taken to the surface and sold by Pearl. The only evidence we have of this is the fact that Pearl can be found outside of Vault 118 when she's looking for help for the murder quest in Vault 118, and because she runs a shop down there. But this isn't the only theory on cats.
It kindles within me the fire to create as much art as I can.
If birds are simply mobile surveillance units serving the purpose of an ever-present Big Brother, would it be far-fetched to think that cats are synths? We have messed up humans that became ghouls, but cats, they seem perfectly fine. Maybe radiated cats were overlooked in the creation of the game. But to add to this theory, we can look at the guardian of Vault 81, Ashes the cat. Let's rewind for a second. One of the first residents you encounter in Vault 81 isn't a person, it's a cat. Ashes bolts out of the vault and runs headfirst into the Commonwealth wasteland. Later, when you track him down, he's just chilling, calm and composed, and when you tell him to go home, he obeys instantly, navigating the wasteland and returning to Vault 81 flawlessly. No hesitation, no fear, just precision. Now that might seem cute or innocent, but if you've been paying attention to how the Institute operates, this should raise some red flags. If you walk past Ash's owner, Erin, after he returns, she says,
"I'm so excited Ashes is back. But he acts like nothing happened. Is that just a throwaway line? Maybe. Or a hint. Maybe Ashes isn't acting like himself because he's not himself anymore. Vault 81 is extremely cautious. They don't let outsiders in easily, and no known synths have made it inside. So how would the Institute monitor one of the few secure, self-sufficient communities they can't infiltrate? A cat. A simple, adorable, unassuming creature that no one would suspect. It could have been swapped during its time outside of the vault, or the Institute could have intentionally placed it there. Maybe a trader sold it to Erin's parents. After all, vault dwellers don't tend to have pets, and if the player never recovers Ashes during the Hole in the Wall quest, the cat doesn't just disappear, it reappears later, inside the Institute's reactor room during the nuclear option. The cat somehow ends up in one of the most secure facilities in the game. Well, kinda, we don't know if it's the actual cat, but all the cats look the same in the game, which could be another theory, you get my point. Could that be a glitch? Sure. But could that also mean that the Institute had ashes the entire time? If we push this theory deeper, Vault 81 is hiding a secret, the mole rat virus, a biological anomaly the Institute would absolutely want to study. A synth cat would be the perfect delivery mechanism for gathering a sample, small, agile, and unnoticed. And what about the Vault's crop research lab? Dr. Pensky is doing advanced agricultural research, the kind that shows up again at Warwick Homestead, a location known to be under Institute observation. Could Ashes be ferrying information between the two? Maybe the real question isn't whether Ashes is a synth. Maybe it's how many other pets in the Commonwealth are watching us. This level of the iceberg seems to be the Institute conspiracy level, and it's no different for the humans walking around on the surface. Because wouldn't you know it, Trashcan Carla is a spy for the Institute. And not just her, but multiple people, all knowing of the Institute and the synths and aiding them in their dirty deeds. In the Institute, and more specifically the Synth Retention Bureau, you can find a terminal entry on the Bureau's current operations. One terminal has an entire list of informants located in the Commonwealth. We have Cricket, Tommy Lonegan, Trashcan Carla, Doc Weathers, AJ, Morawski, Locust Miller, and even Henry Cook. The terminal states, the following individuals have proven useful in our reclamation operations. In exchange for caps, these persons have in the past provided information on escaped synth sightings and suspected railroad activity. If you make a new contact, add the individual to the database. These sick bastards have been working with the Institute right under your nose this whole time. It's pretty mind-blowing to hear it for the first time, and honestly, it's shocking how many there are.
Deacon is secretly following you around long before you officially meet him. When you first enter Diamond City, you'll see Piper and the mayor having their famous argument. But if you look closely in the corner near Officer Sullivan, you'll spot a familiar bald guy in sunglasses. That's actually Deacon disguised as a Diamond City guard. Talk to him and you'll notice his dialogue is different from every other guard. But Diamond City isn't his only disguise. Head to Bunker Hill and after talking to Kessler, glance over to your left. Guess who you'll see? Yup, that same familiar bald guy wearing sunglasses again, this time pretending to be a caravan worker. And just like before, his dialogue is unique. Still skeptical? Well, if you attack either of these disguised versions of Deacon, he won't die. He'll simply drop to the ground because he's marked as essential. And if that's still not enough proof, listen closely.
My job's mainly intel, so the more places I go, the better I'm doing it.
The voice actor for these characters is identical to Deacon's, and visually, the resemblance is spot on. This is clearly Deacon. He'll even state that he's been watching you for a long time when you first meet the railroad and that he knows your character. And when you go west of Vault 111, you will find a chair and some other stuff set up to watch the vault entrance with a railroad sign on it. Deacon has been waiting. Why or how would Deacon know when you were going to emerge from the vault? How did he even know the sole survivor was in there? There's crazy theories that he's a time traveler or the mysterious stranger, stuff like that. There's a more obvious theory that he's a synth and maybe he had background knowledge on the sole survivor and that makes him essentially immortal and he tried waiting for them for a long time. And yes, he will even tell you he's a synth, but he isn't though. Through charisma checks, you can convince him to tell you he's lying, and the note he gives you as his shutdown code is something along the lines of, "Don't trust everything people tell you." But is he also just lying about that? Dude is a walking bag of cats. Vault 101 is of course not located in the Commonwealth, and we know this because it's in Fallout 3's Capital Wasteland. Yet, Vault 101's jumpsuit can be found in Fallout 4. Well, sort of. The Vault 101 jumpsuit can only be obtained through console commands. It's most likely just a leftover piece of content from the creation process of the game. Some people theorize that the suit would have had some importance in the game and then was cut, like maybe a reference to the Lone Wanderer or something. It's still fun to see and use. Makes you think of the good old days.
You can find a unique variant of the mole rat in Fallout 4 in only 2 places of the game, Kendall Parking Garage and USAF Satellite Station Olivia. And these aren't your typical mole rats. Someone decided to strap 2 fragmentation mines onto them using a makeshift bomb vest. And yeah, it's as messed up as it sounds. Because of this explosive setup, fighting these mole rats up close is definitely not recommended. If you hit them with melee attacks, you'll quickly regret it. In the parking garage, there's a strange drifter hanging out on the first level of the area. She's clearly lost a few marbles, talking to the mole rats around her and affectionately calling them ratties. She genuinely sees them as her buddies. She's not aggressive at first, but if she catches you fighting her beloved ratties, she'll immediately jump in to defend them. Also, if she loves them so much, why is she strapping them up with bombs? Jet is one hell of a drug. You ever met a guy named Mac in his little makeshift bar in the wasteland? When you first find him, he's usually talking to himself, and you can spot him in various strange places like near Vault 111, Diamond City, Great Garden, Milton General Hospital, or even by the Deathclaw Nest on the quest The Devil's Due. If you ask Mac why his bar is set up in such odd locations, he'll tell you it's because real estate prices inside settlements are way too high. Sounds eerily familiar. Owning a bar has always been his childhood dream, a place where folks can just relax, have a drink, and share their troubles. Mac also mentions that he once thought about hiring a busty waitress to attract customers, but then he quickly corrects himself, noting that people aren't really into that anymore. Clearly, Mac's doing his best to adapt to the post-apocalyptic market trends. As I'm writing this script, I want to mention that these random encounter characters are so rare or so bugged that sometimes it's almost impossible to find them, even after hours of searching or waiting. So if all we have is pictures, then please forgive us. This shit is grueling for real. So on that note, let's talk about Kat and Gus. This is another random encounter character, a little girl named Kat and her massive sentry bot named Gus who protects her. She is a merchant, and she can sell you things. If you're an evil bastard and you kill Gus for whatever psychopathic reason, she'll say, "You killed my only friend," and then never talk to you again. And that's just really sad.
The freefall legs introduce some wild lore into Fallout, especially because they are just two pieces of combat leg armor. Yet the implications of these things are far more unique than some of the most insane items we've seen in Fallout. Back in September 2077, a young intern named Jack Rockford started working at Boston's Mass Fusion building. He quickly noticed a big problem. The elevators constantly malfunctioned and there weren't any emergency stairs. Inspired by the shock-absorbing hydraulics in power armor, Jack created a smaller version using military combat armor. He called his invention the freefall legs, designed to safely absorb the impact of long falls. Jack planned to impress his coworkers by showing off the freefall legs at the company's Christmas party on the rooftop, so he locked them safely away in his office safe. But unfortunately for Jack, on October 23rd, the bombs fell. He ended up trapped in his office, and worst of all, he'd already lost the key to his safe, leaving his invention locked away and unusable. Trapped without food or water, Jack eventually passed away, leaving the freefall legs hidden and untouched for over 200 years. You can find these in the Mass Fusion building, a pair of combat armor leg pieces both carrying the Acrobat legendary effect, which grants them an individual 50% reduction to limb damage. When worn together, fall damage is negated completely, similar to wearing a suit of power armor. This isn't just like a random legendary effect you find in most weapons. They created a canon story as to why these exist, making the technology a possibility in Fallout from here on out. It's pretty wild when you take it into consideration. Remember how we said Deacon is a bag of cats? Well, he's back with an even more insane theory. So some fans believe Deacon is actually the lone wanderer from Fallout 3. Sounds wild. It comes from Cool Dr. Money on Reddit, fan theories, and here's his thought process. First, the name Deacon isn't his real name, it's a code name, but there is meaning behind it. A deacon is a religious figure, usually ranked just below a priest. It also means to prepare or doctor something. That lines up nicely with all the biblical symbolism in Fallout 3, like Revelation 21:6 and the Lone Wanderer's father being a literal doctor trying to purify the DC water supply. It's possible that Deacon chose the name as a nod to those events. Timeline-wise, the Lone Wanderer leaves Vault 101 in 2277. Fallout 4 starts in 2287, meaning there's just a 10-year gap. The Lone Wanderer was 19 in Fallout 3, so they'd be around 29 during Fallout 4. That also lines up pretty well with Deacon's assumed age. Deacon also acts very chill during fights. He often cracks sarcastic one-liners and doesn't seem too fazed by danger, which might be the mindset of someone who's seen it all. Or someone who knows death isn't permanent because, hey, reloads exist. One of his suggested team names is Code Violet, which just happens to be part of Harkness's synth recall code from Fallout 3. Coincidence? Maybe. But Harkness was a synth, and Deacon is all in on helping synths. If he is the Lone Wanderer, it would make sense that helping synths is personal for him after what he went through in the Capital Wasteland. Deacon's also known for constantly changing outfits depending on where you take him, something a lot of Fallout 3 players did with their individual character. And the theory goes deeper. If Deacon used to be the Lone Wanderer, he'd understand the power and potential of a Vault Dweller. That explains why he was watching Vault 111, why he spies on you early on, and why he vouches for you so hard when you meet the Railroad. Finally, the theory argues that his comfort with combat and surgery just comes from experience. I mean, if you've watched Liberty Prime destroy the Enclave firsthand, a bit of facial reconstruction probably seems like no big deal. It's definitely just a lot of circumstantial evidence, but there seems to be a little something here. I would personally need to see some more meat on the bones, more hard proof type of evidence, but it is an interesting theory.
The Lucky Rabbit's Foot is just a cut weapon that never made it into the game. It takes the space of a grenade and it gives you an extra 10% XP and 3 more to your luck. If you're using console commands, you can check it out for yourself. Dogmeat being a synth is probably a theory a lot of people hold canon in their heads. There's no actual evidence suggesting so, but there's a lot of circumstantial stuff that seems odd. First off, Dogmeat can't die. He's marked as essential in the game, which means no matter what kind of chaos he's caught in, he just gets knocked out and then gets back up later. Now sure, that could just be a gameplay decision so you don't lose your dog, but it's worth pointing out that many important synth characters also can't be killed. So maybe it's more than just a coincidence. Then there's the way he shows up. You first find Dogmeat just hanging around the Red Rocket truck stop conveniently close to Vault 111. He's not wearing a collar, there's no backstory, and no one ever claims him. It's like he was just placed there. Some fans believe the Institute might have put him there on purpose, to keep an eye on you, guide you, or even protect you. Plus, Dogmeat is way too smart. He can sniff out enemies, detect traps, fetch specific items, open doors, you name it. That is not your average dog behavior. That's enhanced intelligence. Almost like built-in sensors or programming. And it's not just gameplay. Nick Valentine, who's literally a synth detective, immediately trusts Dogmeat and says things like, "You're not just any mutt, are you?" That line does hit different if you think Dogmeat's hiding something. There's even in-game evidence that the Institute has been experimenting with cybernetic animals, as we know. In the Institute, there's a terminal that talks about something called Project CAMS, which stands for Cybernetic Animal Modification System. It's all about enhancing animals for surveillance or combat. Sound familiar? And speaking of synths, Dogmeat can track them just as easily as he tracks humans. Maybe that's just good dog instincts, but maybe it's some kind of internal tech helping him out. And weirdly enough, he doesn't trigger any synth detection devices or scanners. That would make sense if he were a next-gen prototype. Maybe a Gen 4 synth that doesn't even look human. Even Mama Murphy calls him a wasteland legend, suggesting he's some immortal being that's traveled the wasteland with other main characters. Weird. I'm sure we could go on and on about the weird things with Dogmeat, but it is some pretty compelling stuff. This is where things start to get really weird or unknown. The lore is deep here, and the theories are even more ridiculous. Alright, let's talk about one of Fallout's biggest lore debates, Jet. So if you've played Fallout 2, you probably remember that Jet was supposedly invented by Myron around 2240. He was this smug teen genius who created the chem using Brahmin dung and slaves as test subjects. Not exactly a stand-up guy. But then you get to Fallout 4, and suddenly, Jet is inside Vault 95. Not only that, but if you dig around Vault-Tec HQ, you'll find terminals that reference Jet by name in pre-war shipments. So how does that even make sense? Did Jet exist before the war? Wasn't it created way after? That's where the confusion starts. Either Bethesda forgot their own lore, or they're retconning it, or maybe there's a deeper explanation. Honestly, it's not crazy to think that they might have just missed it. There was over a decade between Fallout 2 and 3, and then another 7 years before Fallout 4. Plus, Myron was killed off after Fallout 2, and even in the game's lore, no one liked him. He was a misogynistic, power-hungry kid who enslaved people, abused them for his experiments, and treated women like trash. He even owned prostitutes, doing all of this while being 16. So yeah, not exactly the kind of character people wanted to keep around in the lore. This all gets even more interesting when 76 comes out and they leave Jet out of the game, confirming that this was indeed invented after the bombs fell. So now they're retconning their own retcon. The most likely scenario is that Vault 95 was just a writing error on someone's part, which happens. I don't blame anyone for forgetting that little bastard. Some people online have even said that this is a confirmed statement, that it truly was a writing error, but I couldn't personally find anything official, so if you guys know, then leave it below. Also, if we Occam's razor this, then another answer would be that Myron was just lying. He probably found the recipe and said he created it. It's not like he's some morally upright character that would never lie.
Myron died less than a year after the defeat of the Enclave, stabbed by a Jet addict while drinking in the den. His discovery of Jet was quickly forgotten, and now there is no one who remembers his name.
I'll just make this one quick because the theory could literally go on for days. But basically it states that Fallout 4 is a fabrication of the sole survivor's mind while they are in the cryogenic chamber. Whether to cope with the insane sense of time or trauma, maybe they installed a similar program like Tranquility Lane where you live out your fantasies or are stuck in a personal hell. These theories to me are the most basic because you could truly go on for days connecting random dots that suggest it's a possibility. Because playing video games are obviously going to have those inconsistencies. But you could connect a million other dots suggesting this isn't possible. The Brotherhood of Steel, for example. How would the sole survivor even know that they existed or that a man leading them named Maxon also existed? Mason and I have done countless videos on unmarked locations throughout the Fallout saga, but I have to admit, I think we missed one. RJ Engler Test. It's an unused cell in the game's files of Fallout 4's Far Harbor DLC. If you save your game while visiting the test cell, it will save out as Claraland. On the surface, this location reminds me of the nuclear testing sites of the mid-1900s, where fake towns were built in the middle of Nevada so that scientists could review and behold the blast's devastation. Claraland also has empty houses, shacks, stores, and more, all waiting to be experimented with. Interestingly enough, there are unique objects here such as the brooms with screwdrivers attached to them referencing the Disney classic Fantasia, where those iconic marching brooms fill a creepy cavern with water. We also have a children's book reference from The Mouse and the Motorcycle where a mole rat is found on top of a motorcycle. Then there's sheer debauchery such as the Brahmin skull with its eye sockets stuffed with pool balls, or the fish wearing a gas mask referencing the Zodiac book. The list of random, cool, and unique findings go on here. Oh, and if you're looking to exit the cell, type in Cock Sanctuary EXT to teleport out. And yes, that's Cock spelled without the K. Check this big guy out. If you've ever wandered over to the Pinecrest Cavern, which you can get to via heading underneath the Trapper Outpost, you probably noticed it's dark, moist, and dingy. What you may have not noticed is the gigantic skeleton entombed in the wall, notably holding a smaller skeleton's skull and vertebrae. The smaller skeleton isn't a child's body, and the skeleton holding it isn't a normal-sized human. So what does this mean? Giants confirmed. At least at some point in the world's history of Fallout, this big behemoth was apparently ripping humans to shreds long before the Great War ever started. This one is simple. Basically, the devs had created more magazine issues for the game, but for some reason they were never used. You have the issue number 3, Jackie Oh My, issue number 4, and then if you had collected them both, which you can still do using console commands, you would receive the last unused issue, Anchorage the Buzzed Colt Classic, which looks like it was inspired by the military pre-bomb.
Stash is a chem dealer you can run into while out walking around. Her name, yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. Turns out her parents were deep into chems when they named her, but Stash thinks the name fits her lifestyle just fine. She roams around the wasteland selling chems, usually flanked by her 2 bodyguards, Alexa and Simon, who are also siblings. You'll meet her through a series of random encounters across the map. The first time you bump into her is during one of those choke point random events. She introduces herself and you get a feel for the dynamic between the trio. Simon's not just her bodyguard, he's also one of her customers. He's hooked on chems and that really ticks off Lexa. If everyone survives the first encounter and you keep things friendly, you'll get another chance to meet the crew later on. This time Stash is happy to see you're still alive and kicking. She's still dealing, but now she's talking about how Lexa's getting more and more frustrated with Simon's addiction. Stash even mentions she wants to help Simon kick the habit. Unfortunately, the story takes a dark turn. In a final campsite encounter, you'll find Stash dead. No sign of her chem stash, and her bodyguards are nowhere around. Later on, you might run into Simon again, but things have changed. He's running with a group of raiders now, and he's hostile on sight. No dialogue, no catching up, just violence. Simon apparently never kicked his habit, and he took out Stash and took her stash with him. Then he became a raider. It's probably one of the most complex random encounter scenarios you can find in the game. Meeting them not once, not twice, but literally 4 more times all in random encounters is highly unlikely. And by the time you did, you'd probably have forgotten who Simon even was. This might be the most talked about theory in all of Fallout 4. Debates are still raging on to this day as to why Nate and Nora are a synth. It was a common theory that people entertained when the game first came out, but with the arrival of Far Harbor, people really started to look at it more seriously. In Far Harbor, there's a synth there named Dima, a seemingly self-proclaimed philosopher and aide to all synths in the wasteland. When you meet him, you'll get some special dialogue. One of the things he asks you is, what is your first memory? All of your responses are about the bombs dropping. It doesn't seem like being frozen would affect your memories though, so why would the bombs falling be the very first memory that you remember? Shouldn't you remember your childhood friends or when you met your spouse? Some claim that this isn't the case and that the opening cutscene in Fallout is the sole survivor's memories, or the fact that they remember what Diamond City used to look like before the war, or baseball and how to play it, or even your spouse in the park a year ago. The counter argument to this would be that the Institute implanted memories into you, which we've seen done before with synths like Nick Valentine. But why then does Vault-Tec Ghoul remember you before the bombs fell? Or the robots at the USS Constitution knowing about your military past? Dima goes on to goad the sole survivor into admitting that they're a synth potentially. Well, it's one of the conclusions you can infer about yourself in the dialogue options. There are other points that people bring up suggesting that the theory is valid. Some fans point to the fact that the sole survivor wakes up after 200 years in perfect health. While cryosleep is explained in universe, the fact that no muscle atrophy or severe psychological effects occur has raised eyebrows. The intro is a bit stylized, and some theorists suggest that the sole survivor's pre-war memories could have been implanted. Like we said before with other synths similar to Nick Valentine's memory conflict. The Institute also has advanced synth technology and is capable of memory implantation and creating synths indistinguishable from humans, even to themselves. It's not far-fetched that they'd create a version of the sole survivor to monitor the Commonwealth or fulfill a deeper role. Also, why would the Institute allow you to access Sean so easily once you find him? Some say it's because you're part of the plan, a synth experiment in loyalty, morality, or emotional development. Sean even offers you a leadership role without much resistance, which seems odd unless you were meant to be there. And the sole survivor quickly becomes incredibly skilled in weapons, survival, hacking, medicine, and etc. Abilities that feel almost too good for someone who was a lawyer or a soldier 200 years ago. Some theorize these are built-in programs or enhancements rather than natural talent, similar to the augments found in New Vegas DLC Old World Blues and the experiments that occur there. Also, Bethesda loves open-ended mystery. There's never a definitive statement that confirms you're not a synth. The game ends without revealing much about your physical nature. The lack of DNA or test results, unlike for Sean or others, is suspicious to some. I'm sure I could find a lot more examples of suggested evidence. Then there's the arguing side, and in my opinion, the evidence is stronger on this side. Take for example the foremost Dr. Amari. With her memory pods, she's able to scan a person's brain, meaning she can tell if someone's a synth. As demonstrated during the Railroad questline, she can even rewrite a synth's memories if they opt into the procedure, something particularly useful for those struggling with PTSD. In Emergent Behavior, it's revealed that this ability stems from the synth's cybernetic nature, specifically the presence of a synth component. It shows that Amari can detect this synth component. She can identify a synth when she sees one, even someone like the sole survivor. If the sole survivor were a synth, Amari would have said so, bound by the Hippocratic Oath and just being a generally good person. She would have brought it up. This is someone who risks everything to help the Railroad after all. But instead of dropping a bombshell about our memories being fake, she supports our wild mission to destroy the Institute. She doesn't say our memories are fabricated, and she certainly never mentions a synth component in our head, because apparently there is no synth component. I don't want to dredge on too long because I think we all get the point of this one, and I'm not here to solve the case. No one can at this point in time. But it is a fun theory, and I think people take it a little too seriously.
This is a very unknown Easter egg found in one of Fallout 4's DLCs called Nuka World. Head to the Disciples layer and then climb all the way to the top of the structure, literally onto the roof of it. There you will find a little plaque or whatever, which appears to be Han Solo when he was frozen in carbonite in Star Wars. This thing is a one-of-a-kind creation. Usually Bethesda creates Easter eggs using their in-game assets, but this one was created for the sole purpose of being an Easter egg. Pretty cool. The first place the sole survivor can hear whispers about the legendary grenade guy is Hardware Town, located just southwest of Diamond City. The area is crawling with raiders, and if the player approaches the front entrance, a raider posing as a distressed settler will call for help before darting inside. Classic trap.
Hey! I told you to bring them in through the basement! Shut up! They're headed this way now. Be ready!
Once the ambush is handled and the building cleared, you can exit through the back door, where more raiders are waiting. But if you sneak out unnoticed, you'll catch two of them chatting. One of the raiders recounts a bizarre encounter.
Becca pulled him into the front of the store and everything seemed fine, right? He must have got spooked or something, because he suddenly starts throwing grenades everywhere.
They try to lure in some poor sap with the same fake settler routine. But this guy didn't react like normal. When he realized it was a setup, he started hurling grenades, except they were just rocks. Even weirder, the guy was making all the explosion sounds himself. Then, without missing a beat, he began making machine gun noises, slowly backing toward the entrance. The raiders were so stunned they didn't react. The man escaped, and outside, he pretended to hop on a motorcycle, complete with ignition, revving, and gear shifting sound effects, as he rode off into the wasteland. By the way, how do these raiders even know what a motorcycle sounds like? That's a theory in itself. Anyways, that's not the last time you'll hear about him. Another group of raiders, hiding out in an old parking lot near Trinity Plaza, has their own story. If you sneak close without being spotted, you'll overhear more chatter about this strange character. One raider, on watch duty, recalls seeing a man sprinting down the road, heading straight toward the super mutants at Trinity Tower. The guy doesn't stop. The mutants don't even react. Everyone, raiders and mutants alike, is frozen in disbelief as the man zooms by, once again making motorcycle noises with his mouth. Not exactly a common occurrence in the Boston ruins. As he nears the tower, the man digs into his bag, pulls out another grenade, pretends to yank the pin with his teeth, and tosses it into the lobby. Then, revving up his imaginary bike, he makes a loud boom sound and peels off into the distance, leaving everyone too confused to do anything but stare. And thus ends the strange, unforgettable tale of Grenade Guy. Unfortunately, we never get to meet him or hear more about him, but he will always stay a legend in our hearts.
Fucking nuts! You guys hanging out? No, we just stood there. We couldn't believe what we were seeing.
In the Beacon Hill neighborhood of Boston, the Vault-Tec region HQ was of course the headquarters for Vault-Tec's Commonwealth region, prior to the area being known as the Commonwealth. Let's start here. A few weeks before the war began, the facility was having tremors of troubles. Martin Reed, an employee at the HQ, noticed that his employers were a bit unhinged. Matt found mass shipments of drugs, and addictive ones at that, going directly to Vault 95 and calling foul play to the residents, which of course his boss denied any wrongdoing. Matt was then tipped off that a shipment for Vault 111 was in the basement of the HQ and to not open the shipment, but of course he opened it and found liquid nitrogen. Circumstances like this, or the fact we get insight that his boss once broke a pool cue over another employee's head because the employee stood too close to the table when the boss was making his shot, yeah, that happened. The boss, known as Frank Davidson, also noted in his personal log on October 13th that if an employee by the name of Sharon accidentally spilled coffee on his new t-shirt, he would come unglued and stab her in the throat with his pen. By October 17th, he fulfilled his personal oath. And thus we see a pen stab skeleton in Vault-Tec's HQ. Sharon definitely had it coming though. Kidding. But it was probably the most merciful death considering everyone got obliterated by radiation anyway. By October 19th, Frank had the same desire to discipline Matt for addressing his theories on the company's evil plans to their respective vault dwellers. It's safe to say Frank Davidson was a horrible boss. Welcome to the bottom. It is dark and strange here. Everything needs to be taken with a healthy dose of skepticism, but it will make you think. Do you remember Vault 118's purpose? Let me refresh your memory. Vault 118, located beneath the Cliff's Edge Hotel, was designed as an exclusive vault for the ultra-rich, disguised as a luxury hotel. The plan involved a social experiment where 10 wealthy residents would live in comfort with robot staff, while up to 300 working-class individuals would be confined to a cramped inferior wing. The elite would have full legal control over the lower class, enforced by the robots. However, this plan was never completed. Construction of the second wing was halted when lead investor Ezra Parker stopped funding it. Instead, only the elite moved in, eventually transferring their brains into robo-brains to survive the looming war. After the vault was sealed during the Great War, the Overseer remained the only human, surrounded by unstable robo-brains. Years later, a murder inside the vault led the robotic residents to call for an outsider detective's help. The outside detective, of course, being you. Now, if you're asking yourself what Autumn Leaves is, I got you covered. Autumn Leaves is a highly praised Fallout New Vegas mod known for its polished, mystery-driven questline, excellent writing, and strong voice acting. The claim is that a quest in Fallout 4's Far Harbor DLC is strikingly similar to Autumn Leaves in both plot and vault design. Almost too similar.
Years before the nuclear catastrophe, a handful of wealthy men and women grew increasingly worried by the political unrest across their countries.
It's worth noting that the mod, at least based on user comments, features deeper dialogue, more branching paths, and richer characters compared to the more streamlined mass market feel of the DLC quest. To be honest, I never tried the Autumn Leaves mod, so I can't make a judgment call myself. If you have and you've played Vault 118 as well, what are your thoughts? Is 118 plagiarized? Or is this simply a coincidence?
The library would not die with him. He spent his time reprogramming his robots.
Let's hear what Pam has to say.
Preliminary adjustments to statistical models complete. Commencing introduction. I was, am, and will most likely be Pam. Predictive Analytic Machine.
The Predictive Analytic Machine, or PAM, is a highly complex AI associated with an altered version of an Assaultron unit based out of Railroad HQ. She, or it, was developed in 2067 as part of a joint project between the Defense Intelligence Agency and the military. Designed to predict the future using data input by humans, its true purpose was to prevent nuclear war. Eventually, Pam was installed in a modified Assaultron body for mobility and easier relocating during potential enemy attacks. The theory behind this Assaultron starting the war came from a line the robot mentioned stating, "I don't like too many unknown variables." An odd thing to say considering her entire life is based out of computing and estimating the future based on nothing but unknown variables. Yet I think we can all resonate with Pam to a degree. Sometimes we go to work and have to figure out a complex situation. That's what people are paid to do, but it doesn't mean we like the complexity of issues at times. Just like Pam doesn't like predicting the future on guesswork. This brings us to the second point that Pam will actually complain about humanity causing her predictions to be skewed, which has led some fans to speculate that since humans are an inconsistent variable, why not rid the world of them? Ultimately, Pam is a predictive modeling machine. And like any predictive model, just because you have one doesn't mean the model is going to make the choice for you. It's ultimately up to humanity to seal its fate. And really that's the theme of Fallout, humanity living with its consequences. It's just unfortunate that humans, ghouls, or robots for that matter have to live with the consequences even if they didn't necessarily want to be a part of it to begin with.
If you're afraid of things like dolls or mannequins, this one might not be your cup of tea. The theory suggests that the mannequins found in the Commonwealth are in fact alive. I know it sounds crazy, but there's actually some substance here which kind of blew my mind while researching it. First off, let's talk about the surface level stuff. Basically, you'll find mannequins all over the wasteland, not just in Fallout 4. And that's fine, because stores and places like that would have them put on display. But then why do we always find them in the most remote or odd places? Could it be raiders or mutants moving them? Yeah, sure. But all of them? Just seems like an odd coincidence. But what's even worse is that you'll find them positioned in strange ways, like holding machetes or weapons over dead bodies. Now let's get into the real meaty stuff. When you go to Far Harbor and you're exploring the underwater depths at your leisure, you might run across this vessel. Inside are hordes of mannequins, all carrying weapons or just staring. They'll even spook you as you loot the shipping containers nearby. But the creepiest part about all of this is the note that the captain left that you can find. It says, "I can't wait to drop these damn mannequins off." The crew is starting to claim that they're hearing weird noises from the cargo. Maybe they're just playing pranks on me. Whatever, we're almost there. Okay, so far nothing concrete, but it is a little weird, right? What gets even crazier is that in Fallout 76, there was a quest that got cut where mannequins in a shopping center were to come alive and take the identities of dead workers. Yes, Bethesda was going to literally make a quest where the mannequins actually come alive and try to murder you. I have my own two theories on how this is possible.
One, the mannequins in 76 would be a reference to the long-running joke that all mannequins are alive. Bethesda would have made them machines most likely, robots that were meant to protect the store or maybe just move around to display items better. Or the more fun theory, mannequins in the series are possessed by ghosts. I know that might sound crazy, but ghosts in Fallout are confirmed. We made a whole video on that explaining all the ghost sightings and even conversations you can have with the dead. It's probably some of the strangest lore in Fallout, but it could explain why the mannequins are so murderous and alive. It's the spirits of millions of people attaching to objects after being unfairly torn away from their world thanks to the bombs. Regardless, it's all a little disturbing. Similar to the mannequins, we have the gnomes. If you've had a chance to play Far Harbor, then you may have noticed the gnomes can be found everywhere, in unsettling positions. We see gnomes constantly surrounding skeletons as if they had something to do with the deceased folks of Maine. Perhaps there's a secret coalition of murderous gnomes roaming the island, wreaking havoc on its citizens. I mean, we have gnomes with knives popping a brewski, or the little fella underneath the dock trying to take a picture of the recent kill from above, or even this guy caught in the act decapitating numerous corpses. The thing is, gnomes aren't the only inanimate objects finding themselves in interesting circumstances. As we know, you have the mannequins and the teddy bears that can all be found in coffins or on top of cannons, as if they deliberately placed themselves there when nobody was watching. Or we could take this iceberg a step further and assume a lone wanderer is posing these objects up around the island in weird positions, since apparently he or she has nothing better to do. The true answer though, it's a fun ruse to add context and humor to the world, and they're considered a set dressing. If you ever took a first glance at the globes in the game, they might look right on par with what you'd expect. We have Australia, the fragmented islands of Southeast Asia, North America, and you get the picture. But if you ever map it out, like quite literally extend the map horizontally, you'd find that Europe looks overly full, as if the seas and the bodies of water are missing. Even the Great Lakes of North America look filled in. So the theory of course springs up. Did the Great War have a significant impact on Earth's geography? Or did the artists not do a good enough job on accurately depicting the world map? Of course, the Great War impacted the world's geography at a more minute level, at least that we're aware of. But overall, the globes in the game are incorrect. I'd like to give a shout out to a user named Pdobrev who took the time and diligence to look into the matter. He goes on to describe that a Nukipedia entry in a brief summary states, on the globes and the maps of the world in Fallout 4, it appears that the Mediterranean Sea has either dried up or was purposefully drained due to it being colored the same as large land masses. If the Mediterranean was purposefully drained during or before the Resource War by the European Commonwealth, this may be a reference to Project Atlantopa, in which Europe drained the Mediterranean Sea for easier access to natural resource. But as I mentioned earlier, the Great Lakes are also colored in, which aren't in Europe. He also found that the Black Sea, Caspian Sea, and the Red Sea were all missing too. It appears that a map taken from Wikimedia Commons was used to draw inspiration on the globes in the game. And when you try to Photoshop the map with Quick Selection tool, it initially doesn't recognize those lakes or seas, and it colors it all in one color. So, to sum it up, the globes were a poor Photoshop job. But considering the rest of the game looks absolutely beautiful, and considering it became a conspiracy theory amongst fans of the game, it's cool to see an oversight like this get added to the lore of Fallout.
I'm here today to tell you that because of your family's service to our country, you have been pre-selected for entrance into the local vault. Vault 111.
Vault 111 seems pretty straightforward at first glance. It's described as a cryogenic facility designed to test the long-term effects of freezing humans for future space travel or post-war survival. One of the rare control vaults, right? A vault where things actually went according to plan for once. But there's a theory floating around that flips all of that on its head. It suggests that the real test subjects weren't the people inside the cryopods, but the scientists running the vault. It makes a weird kind of sense, especially when you look at how Vault Tech operated across the series. They never really ran normal experiments. Vault 11 forced people to vote someone to die every year. Vault 19 stirred up paranoia by dividing people based on color. Vault 112 let a single man trap people in horrific virtual reality scenarios for his own entertainment. Vault Tech loved stress testing human morality and behavior, so why would Vault 111 be any different? Think about it. The residents inside the cryopods didn't do anything. They weren't making choices, they weren't being monitored for complex behavior, they were frozen solid within minutes. Very passive, completely out of the picture. But the scientists? They were trapped underground, with no contact from the outside world, forced to maintain life support systems for people they couldn't interact with. They had to follow orders they likely didn't fully understand, all while slowly running out of food and losing hope that anyone would ever come let them out. You can actually read some of this in the Overseer's terminal. The logs start off professional and clinical, but then you see them shift. Morale starts to drop and food supplies dwindle while tensions rise. Eventually there's talk of revolt, staff refusing to obey orders, fear of being overthrown. The final entries are basically chaos. Everything breaks down. The experiment collapses. If the purpose was just to test cryosleep, why put the staff through that much psychological pressure? It honestly feels more like Vault-Tec wanted to see how long these people could stay loyal, and what they'd do when pushed too far. Also, let's not forget, Vault 111 is labeled as a control vault. But Vault-Tec's idea of control always comes with a catch. Nearly every so-called control vault we've ever heard about still had some hidden variable. What if the lie wasn't about the vault's purpose, but who was actually being tested? Now here's where it gets even more interesting. The sole survivor, you weren't supposed to wake up. The only reason you escaped was because of Kellogg and the Institute, and even then, it wasn't part of the original plan. Once the system failed and you emerged into the Commonwealth, it's possible that even then, someone was still watching. Maybe your journey wasn't entirely free of Vault-Tec's influence. After all, Vault-Tec had no problem playing the long game. At the end of the day, maybe the frozen residents were just variables, part of a bigger setup designed to test the people who were still conscious, the scientists. The ones who had to watch it all go wrong in slow motion. The ones who thought they were in charge only to realize too late that they were the rats in the maze.
Most players brush off Mama Murphy as just another quirky wasteland character, a jet-addicted old lady sitting in a chair spouting cryptic nonsense. But there's a theory that she's more than that. Some people believe Mama Murphy is actually a Psyker, someone with legitimate psychic abilities, not just high on chem's insight, but real supernatural powers. This idea doesn't come out of nowhere. First, it's worth noting that Psyker isn't just a fan-made term. It's something that's rooted in Fallout lore. Back in Fallout 2, there were a few rare individuals who displayed psychic phenomena. The most notable example was the Psyker enemies found in the Sierra Army Depot. They had dangerous mental abilities, including telepathy and pyrokinesis. So, psychic powers do exist in the Fallout universe. They're extremely rare, but they're not out of the question. Now, back to Mama Murphy. Throughout Fallout 4, she makes predictions about people, events, and places that she shouldn't realistically know anything about. She talks about Sean being alive even before the sole survivor knows for sure. She knows where Kellogg is. She mentions a shrouded man, which is a pretty spot-on description of the Courser, and hints at key plot points involving the Institute long before the player gets close to discovering them. Sure, these could be written off as lucky guesses, but the consistency and accuracy of her visions are hard to ignore. The game leans into the idea that her visions are drug-induced. She specifically says the chems help her see the sight, but some fans argue that the drugs aren't the source of her powers. They're just a way for her to tap into them. Think of it like a radio tuning into a frequency. The chems, especially Jet and Psycho, might be allowing her to temporarily break through into some deeper perception of time and space. In other words, the drugs don't create the sight, they unlock it. Another interesting detail, the way the other characters treat her. Some of the other settlers around Sanctuary refer to her with a strange mix of respect and caution. Even Preston, who's a pretty grounded guy, doesn't outright dismiss her ramblings. It's as if people know there's something off about her, and not just the chems. So is Mama Murphy a full-blown psyker? Maybe. At the very least, she fits the mold. Strange knowledge, unexplained visions, drug-induced trances, and eerie accuracy about the world around her. Whether it's supernatural ability, latent psychic power, or a freak mutation from the wasteland, it's hard to just call her a crazy old lady. There's definitely something more going on under that tattered cloak and cloudy stare.
If you think the Fallout 4 Iceberg is crazy, wait till you see the Fallout 3 and New Vegas ones. The theories and odd things in those games are actually insane. So make sure you're subbed because those will be coming next week and the week after. If you've watched this far, then leave a thumbs up in the comments so we know who you are. We really appreciate the ones who stay to the end. You guys are awesome. Thanks for watching, and remember, enjoyed time is never wasted time and we'll see you in the next.